Okay, so it's 2 o'clock. So I'll go ahead and kick us off, and then if we, if we need to, oh, there's a picture of me. Interesting. If we have anyone join us, they'll just be able to join us as we get going. I appreciate everybody, or most of everybody, having their videos on so we can interact with one another. This is weird and new for all of us, and this might be part of the new normal as we go forward. I really wish we could all be together. I really enjoy our DOT conferences. I like seeing everybody. I like interacting with everybody. While we're actually meeting, and then afterwards we usually grab a bite to eat or stand around and BS a little bit. And I think I'm going to miss that. Doing it this way. At the same time, dealing with the crisis that we're in, that's caused us to have to go this route. But I think this is going to be a good test for the way that we can do things going forward. I would prefer to be in person at our DOT conference, when we do our annual conference, but maybe we have more of these type of things where we get together for, quick trainings, quick meetings, just touch base with one another. So one of the things that we're going to do, we're primarily going to focus on presentations during this meeting, just so that we can kind of get the hang of it. But what I'm really looking forward to is at the end of the meeting, after we get done with the presentation, we can have some interactive Q&A, some questions, some discussion. So be thinking as we're going through this, if there's anything that you'd like to discuss or anything that you'd like to talk about, it doesn't necessarily have to be on the presentation that we just saw. Of course, it can be. But if there's anything that anybody wants to talk about, anything that we need to, discuss, let's discuss it. We've got this time that we're all together. It's going to be a little bit different. Having to mute and unmute ourselves. I'd encourage you to use the raise hand feature. And I think Donna or Alice, one of them is going to go over some of the functionality on Zoom. But let's try to make this as interactive as possible. And as we move forward through the next couple of days, and then into whatever our new normal is, let's try to get together, and do these things a little bit more often where we can interact with one another, even if we're not in person. Let's get the most out of it that we can. I'm really happy that everybody has joined us. I'm thrilled to have you all here virtually. I look forward to the next couple of days, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how this progresses and what we do after the conference this week, and how we can kind of embrace the new normal. So thanks for being here. I will turn it over to the team to go through a presentation today. I'm going to hang around and watch and participate with all of you as well. If anybody has to use a restroom or anything, please, you can turn your video off for a second while you get up and go do what you got to do. But let's try to keep our videos on so that we can interact as necessary. And I'll leave it up to the presenters whether they want to take questions throughout or whether they want to take questions at the end. So thanks for being here, and I'm going to go ahead and mute myself, and look forward to participating with you all over the next couple of days. Thank you.
The demands of the industry, it punishes your body, and anything and everything you can get your hands on to subside that pain is what people are reaching for. At every job site, somebody who either abuses alcohol or abuses drugs of some sort. Your addiction just keeps getting worse and worse and worse.
Something has to be done. Otherwise, where does it stop? If we don't do anything, who does?
That's why the IUPAT is taking action with its Changing the Culture of Construction course, an IUPAT helping hand to give our members resources and a place to turn for help.
An estimated 11.6% of full-time construction workers 1.1 million people have used illicit drugs within the last month. What the IUPT wants to do is work together with the labor and management to come up with resources that are available for them so they can get treatment, get help, and get back on the job and live a productive life.
Whether it's substance use disorder or suicide prevention, recognizing warning signs is key.
We often stereotypically think, I don't have a problem because I'm not under that bridge. I'm not brown bagging it. I've got a job. I've got all these things.
The goal of the instructor training program here, as always, is for them to be exposed to the content, to the curriculum, with experts, subject matter experts. It's an awareness piece for them, and then they'll be given the tools and the strategies in the instructional strategies to go back and deliver that to their membership, primarily in the apprentice program, but they could also use this for journeyman upgrade.
A lot of them are afraid. They're afraid to reach out to people. They're afraid they're going to get turned away or ignored. And I think that's our responsibility to assure them that we're there for them.
None of us look forward to those conversations, but I can guarantee you the longer you put it off, it doesn't get easier.
Addiction and mental health issues are not easy to treat, but they are treatable if you know where to start.
The biggest thing of all is not to be judgmental. They're people. People have issues. People have physical issues, and we deal with those. Well, mental issues are every bit as serious, and we should all be recognizing that we need to deal with those as well.
I'm not a health professional. I'm a parent who lost his son to suicide. I didn't understand what my son was going through. And as an employer, I didn't understand what employees were going through. And I was kind of that guy that more or less said, get your act together or you can't work here anymore. But I learned after my son's death and after a lot of reflection that way doesn't work anymore. And really, we have to, as an industry, have a lot more compassion for people.
From the very first question of, are you okay? If you at least extended a hand and said, hey, you know what, partner, there's a program in place that might help you. I don't want to lose you. We care about you. We care about your skills. You're a valuable part of this organization, and we want to keep you around.
IUPAT is changing the culture of construction and change lives.
I believe the program that we have put together and the commitment that the IUPAT has will certainly save lives in the long run.
I commend the union for being really proactive. So part of what this union is doing is going, man, we really need to set up conditions to create healthy change and create a healthy environment for our employees and our overall union. So I commend you guys for doing so.
Save a life. Visit IUPAThelpinghand.com and don't be a statistic.
Slide 1, please. Can you hear me?
Mike, you're on.
Can you go back to slide 1, please? Okay, we'll start here. Hello, everyone. I'm Mike Hines, Finishing First LMCI Industry Liaison. I'd like to welcome you to the first Director of Training online webinar. Like Anton said, ideally, we'd like to be in the classroom on the second floor of the IFTI building in Hanover. There is nothing like getting together and being in the same classroom and sharing in that IUPAT camaraderie that we all feed off of and enjoy. But when necessary, we improvise, and we are in those improvisation times right now. I've had the honor to work with the Helping Hand work group and begin the foundational build of the IUPAT Helping Hand initiative. We've come a long way since late in the year of 2017 in the process of developing, providing substance use disorder, suicide prevention, and mental health support to members and employers. Today, we're going to dive into the components of Helping Hand so that all of us have a better understanding of the vision of the Helping Hand initiative. IUPAT Helping Hand is a total team effort from top down. We're all in this together as we develop, refine, and continue to build a substance use disorder, suicide prevention, and mental health training component. Slide 2, please. Well, I'm sorry, that was slide 2. If you could go back, please, there we go. Today, you'll hear from several members of the team that have been an integral part of building the foundation of Helping Hand. And this is just the beginning. There's much more work to be done on rolling out Helping Hand to the district councils of the IUPAT. Today, we'll provide you with an overview of the IUPAT Helping Hand initiative. We'll hear from Bob Swanson on mental health warning signs and steps to take for those that could possibly be in a crisis situation. Dan Hink will take us into the Helping Hand website, and we'll discuss the webpage and the resources available. Tom Funstein will walk us through changing the culture of construction on the LMS. We'd like to hear how you're currently training changing the culture, and also that those of you that are planning next year and what those plans are to implement changing the culture into your training. We'll talk about the tools available and the 10 steps to implementation. But we really want to hear from you. So you can express your insights as we continue building upon the foundation that we began in 2017 at FIF. You DOTs are extremely important to the rollout and success of the Helping Hand initiative. Frankly, it can't be done without your support. Remember back in the day, remember when safety first became an important part of the construction industry? I can remember when I was on a job site sanding floors and being on sites where a hard hat wasn't required. Safety vests weren't required. Safety glasses weren't required. And respirators, no one ever heard about a respirator. But we began that process and we built a safety program. Just like safety, we'll build a Helping Hand program for mental health. Slide 3, please. That should be at the very last slide. Okay. So how did we get here? The IUPAT acknowledged the opioid crisis and death by suicide. Recent studies by the United States Center for Disease Control and the Canadian Association for Suicide Prevention reported that the construction industry in both the United States and Canada suffers the highest suicide rate compared to all other industries. Opioids accounted for 20% total spending on prescription drugs in the construction industry. That's 5 to 10 times greater than that of all other industries. An estimated 11.6% of full-time construction workers, 1.1 million people have used illicit drugs within the past month. We all know the physical demands on the construction worker. Many of us have lived it. Mental issues go hand in hand with those physical issues. If your body's not feeling well, chances are your mind is feeling that physical impact. So what do? You've got a job, you've got a family to support, you need to ease the physical and mental pain. Turn to whatever substance will accomplish that immediate need. What happens? In some cases, addiction, hopelessness, thoughts of death by suicide. This is the reality, brothers and sisters. Slide 4. So the IUPAT took action and recognized the opioid crisis and suicide in the construction industry. And we hosted a work group forum in 2017 at FIF. Over 130 attended that session at FIF for substance use and suicide prevention. There was open and frank dialogue from both labor and management about substance use and suicide issues faced in the councils, as well as our employer businesses throughout North America. We heard from experts in the field, and then we broke into work groups. In those work groups, 3 action items were prioritized: survey, media, and curriculum. Then a labor management task force work group was convened. That group developed an action plan and presented it to the GEB, the General Executive Board. Upon approval by the General Executive Board, the action items moved forward and the task force further developed those items. So let's take a look at those items as we move forward. Slide 5 is survey. So we needed to know exactly where our councils were in their processes of mental health, suicide, and substance use disorder. And our greatest opportunity to do that is through a survey. So the first thing we did was we jumped out on a survey, and we conducted a survey of nearly 3,000 contractors and IUPAT members on their awareness of union and employer programs to help them with substance use disorder and mental health issues. So 1/3 of the contractors surveyed, and over half the members who responded did not know that help for these challenges were available through the employee assistance programs affiliated with their district councils. So more important than that was 61% of the members surveyed would utilize those services had they known, and they could find those through their EAP. Upon review of the surveys, we knew that we had work to do. We had to support the members and the employers for substance use disorder, suicide, and mental issues. Slide 6. The second action was media. In 2018, we developed the IUPAThelpinghand.com webpage. This online resource provides background on why suicide and substance use disorders are hitting the construction industry so hard. It lists warning signs to look out for in coworkers or loved ones who may be suffering through a mental health situation. Dan Hink is going to guide the webpage here shortly, and you'll get an overview of exactly what's available on the webpage. Awareness of support is the key to getting the services to members. Not only is it important that the awareness resources reach the members through the IUPAT training and council locations, but we're also asking our employers to come alongside to support IUPAT Helping Hand. Employers can be the first to recognize that a member may be struggling with a problem of some kind. The signs are not hidden. Absenteeism, a decrease in productivity, social distancing, and physical signs of substance use are just some of the indications that a member is struggling and in need of support. The employer can become an extremely important component in recognizing and supporting the member with substance use and mental health issues. Members spend a majority of their time under the eyes of the employer's leadership staff. In many cases, this is where the first indication of a problem can be exposed. Slide 7. The third item is curriculum, changing the culture of construction. Curriculum was adapted from other proven programs and implemented at the International Training Center in 2018. The training is designed to inform and empower all IUPAT members by separating fact from fiction and encouraging our workforce to make healthy decisions when it comes to substance use and seeking mental health support. The goal is to educate individuals, in turn promoting a healthy, safe, and substance-free working environment. In 2019, the curriculum became an online course for district councils in the United States and Canada to learn and teach in all IUPAT training centers in North America. At this point in time, I think about half of our councils have gone through changing the culture of construction. It's the foundation of the Helping Hand initiative. This training and awareness will save lives of IUPAT members for generations to come. Your participation in the webinar today is the first step in moving the IUPAT Helping Hand and the support forward to the members of your councils. Our hope is that through the changing the culture of construction training and the IUPAT Helping Hand resources, You'd be inspired to move this valuable life-saving educational support to all members of your council, adding mental health as an important component to the services the IUPAT councils and training centers provide to members, employers, and their families. So we're going to be moving forward, as I'd mentioned, with some of our other presenters. But if you have any questions right now before we move forward, at that point, I'll introduce Bob. Any questions?
Hey, Mike, this is Anton. I don't have a question, but just a quick comment. You know, some of those statistics are really sobering, and no pun intended, actually. But you know, one of the reasons that we chose to do this today as part of the DOT seminar is we all know what we're going through. We know we've got a lot of members laid off. There's a lot of people hurting. You know, this is a difficult time. I hope that we don't need an EAP. I hope that we don't need these programs, you know, up and running in our councils. But unfortunately, I have a feeling that we're going to. And the longer this goes on, the more help some of our members are going to need, and we need to be there to support them. So, and I'll also make a confession. Most of the staff knows this, but a couple months ago, I didn't know. I knew that we had an EAP, or I had kind of assumed we had an EAP, but I knew nothing about it. Didn't know how to get in touch with anybody. I didn't know how to refer anybody if there was an issue. I had some issues going on with a close family member, and needed to give some, you know, get some help, get some assistance. And I went online and I found our EAP, you know, found all the information, and you know, was able to access that. But it wasn't my first thought, and it wasn't until I was talking to somebody else about it that I realized I need to know what we have. I need to know what's available, not just for myself, but for my coworkers, my family, their families. And I sent around the flyer for our EAP around to the staff, and basically told them, I wish I was better about this and I was more up to speed on this. But just like everyone else, I'm learning. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand or anything like that, but I don't know how many of you know what you have in your EAP, know what's available, know if you have one in your council or not. Again, don't need a show of hands, but I would encourage you to find out and make sure that you know what's available to you. And I'm sure, you know, Mike and Bob and Tom and you know, Dan and everybody are going to guide you through some components of this. But that was the reason why we selected to do this as part of the DOT seminar, and I think it's so vitally important. So I just want to make those comments. Mike, good job thus far, and thank you.
Thank you, Anton. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah. Hey, Mike, Patty Byrne here. I just wanted to know if I could chime in here just for a second.
You bet.
Hey, listen, as you know, I took the training there in Hanover there last year. I thought it was a terrific program, but one of the things I raised at the time was, while I thought that particular program that was been delivered was terrific for DOTs and business managers and reps, I talked about perhaps putting together a shorter program that could be taken back to the councils and maybe delivered to like shop stewards and foremen, superintendents on job sites as well. Have you made any progress with developing a condensed version of the program?
At this point in time, we haven't gone in a direction to condense it. What we would like to do is to work with the councils, and part of our session today will help us discover some of those concerns that you have in and what your needs are in moving forward. If there is a condensed version, then I think that would be open for discussion at some point. But having all you DOTs on the line today will really help us in that discovery process. Well, right now I'd like to introduce a very special man I've had the pleasure to work with since we opened up in Hanover in 2017. Mr. Bob Swanson, a former employer, signatory employer at Swanson Youngdale in District Council 82. Bob is a dedicated advocate for mental health, first aid, mental health and first aid, yes, and suicide prevention. And so without further ado, Bob.
Thank you, Mike. It's my pleasure to be here this afternoon. I'm going to quickly go through some traits of mental illness, and then we're going to talk about some myths of suicide and warning signs of suicide, and then how all of you, if you're put in that situation, you can prevent a death. So about 20% of the adults in the United States live with a mental illness, and about 10% of the adults in the United States live with substance use disorder. They're both illnesses of the brain, and nobody wanted these illnesses. There's nobody's fault. But and unfortunately, many people don't get the help they need because of the shame that's around the illnesses. But thankfully, many do, and you can live with these illnesses in a zone of what we call you're in recovery. So, so these are some general characteristics. Usually there's more than one illness, and so we call that co-occurring. My son had 4 illnesses. There's usually regular use of alcohol or drugs. We've now also know there's usually regular use of tobacco. Lots of anger, and I took this wrong from my son, but he was angry at his illness. And you can find a lot of people, if they are dealing with these illnesses, they're just angry, but they're not angry they're angry at their situation. Lots of shame. Not only do they not want to talk about it, but their families don't want to talk about it. Questionable decision-making. If your brain isn't working properly, you're not going to make good decisions. And then the last one, oftentimes a person stops their medication. That can be for 2 reasons. One, the side effects on all these meds are pretty substantial. And sometimes that's the reason to quit taking the meds. Also, a typical medication for our minds takes about 10 weeks to really take hold. And that's a long waiting period if you're struggling. And lastly, like any of us, if you start feeling better, it's a pretty easy temptation to quit taking the medication. So those are some common traits. I would also invite you to change your terminology. We typically say someone's bipolar, but we don't say someone's cancer. And I think as long as we do that, it stigmatizes them with the illness, and it kind of says it's their fault. So I'd encourage you to change that and say a person lives with a mental illness, as we also say a person lives with cancer. Next slide. So there's a lot of myths about suicide, and I don't want you to get the impression everybody that has a mental illness is thinking of suicide. But clearly, if you're in a strong state of crisis, those thoughts come to a person's mind. So if they're talking about it, they won't do it. Totally false. If someone's talking about it, they're thinking about it. So you have to take that seriously. Talking to someone about suicide might put the idea in their head. If you're really concerned about somebody's mental outlook, that they may be thinking of suicide, they're well ahead of you. It will not put the idea in their head. And I'll go through some steps on how to get someone to talk about it. Suicidal attempts are just a cry for attention. Totally false. It's a cry for help. And once a person has a suicidal plan that cannot be stopped, again, another myth. All of our actions in life, we have 3 stages. They're very general, but we have an idea that's called ideation. We develop a plan, and then we take action. So it's very critical. If somebody has the idea, we can stop them at that point. If they have a plan, we can also stop them before they take action. So please don't think that there's nothing you can do about it. There's a lot you can do about it. Next slide. So there's lots of clues or warning signs about somebody having a suicidal thoughts. We may cover some you've heard or seen, some you may not have heard or seen. These are general, but they're all serious. If you hear these, take it seriously. Comments like, I wish I were dead. I'm tired of life. I'm a burden to everyone. Soon you won't have to worry about me. It's like the person's losing hope. You can imagine someone saying those things. Next slide. There's also behavioral clues. So not only are they maybe saying things, and remember, they're not just to get attention. There's a person crying for help. Behavioral. They're withdrawing from family and friends. They're really moody, hopeless, unexplained anger. At that point, there's somebody you don't want to be around, but that's when they need our attention more than ever. Putting personal affairs in order, giving away prized possessions, acquiring a gun or stockpiling pills. A person is continuing to lose hope. They don't see a future. Next slide. Then there's situational clues, and these are really important today more than the others. Losing your job, loss of a major relationship, diagnosis of a terminal illness, loss of a family member or friend by suicide, arrest and loss of freedom. So not only are a person losing hope, they're losing control of their life. And in 2015, the Centers for Disease Control studied all the suicides of that year. And what they concluded, 29% of the suicide deaths occurred within 2 weeks of a life-changing event. So think of that, 29% occurred within 2 weeks of a life-changing event. So in the world we're now living in, not only all of us need to really regulate our sleep, our diet, our exercise, which is really critical with somebody living with a mental illness, but think of the trigger that would happen here as we're contained to be home, we can't be out with our friends, and you lose your job. Tremendous impact. Next slide. So recently I helped teach a class in DC 82's training center, FTI Upper Midwest. And there was a class of about 10 people, and there were 3 individuals in the class that indicated they are living with a mental illness. So if you make it safe to talk about these things, you'll be amazed at the people every day working around you that are living with extra burden that they have difficulty living with, but they need our care, our compassion, our help. So what I'd like to, this is kind of a step process here, very generally. So if somebody you're really concerned about, their performance is off, they're saying things that really are concerning, they just got laid off, try to assess the situation and meet with the person. And then what you're really doing, I like to call this like a physical injury. If you have a minor cut on the job site, it takes first aid, nothing serious. On the other hand, if somebody lost a couple of fingers, it would be a 911 call. Well, this is similar. So as you meet with that person alone, because of all the shame, you don't want an audience, convey your concern. Lately, I've been hearing you say some things that really concern me. Lately, your performance is off. I'm here for you. I want this to be good. I'd like to see hear from you what's going on. Then listen without judgment, because again, their mind may not be right. They're going to say things that you just think are out of sight. And that person says, I wish I were dead. The tendency is to say, hey, you got lots to live for. That's not going to do any good. Stay with them. And then as you go up this cycle, if you're really concerned they're in that period of contemplating ending their life, you need to ask the question, are you having suicidal thoughts? Tough question to ask, but it will get the shame out and it will hopefully get them to talk about it. Then if they're really at a crisis situation, make sure there's no lethal means nearby. And really, next step, I'd like to go with you to get some help, because we're not mental health experts. I'm certainly not. And then you want to have them go with you to get some help. And then that's if it's a minor deal, that's your EAP program. If this is super serious, we're talking calling 911. If you call 911, you want to ask for a crisis intervention team. Police departments around the country are trained in this, so you want to ask for a crisis intervention team. The last thing I want to really quickly say, a resource, and Dan will go through some of these, the National Suicide Prevention 800-273-TALK, 800-273-TALK. 24/7, they're there to help people. They are trained to help people. Use that through these steps if you're really concerned about somebody's status. And lastly, you may think, well, I don't know what I can do about it. Well, I'll give you a quick story. I gave a presentation at the company that I was with for 37 years, shortly after my retirement. And one of the employees, this was about 3 months after my presentation, a very good employee sent a text to his supervisor early in the morning and said, I can't do this anymore. And thankfully, that supervisor said, you know, this isn't normal for this person to do something like that. He got his supervisor involved. They finally were able to make contact with that person that was troubled that day. Believe it or not, they went and met with him. They took immediate action because they considered this serious. That person was in his car in an empty parking lot. He had the idea, he had the plan, and he had the means to end his life. They thankfully made the contact with him, got him to get some help. And two things are important. Number one, and the most important, he's still alive. And number two, he's still a valuable employee. So if you have that feeling that someone's really in a crisis situation, you really need to take action because you could save a life. Too often I've heard of people say later, I wish I would have done something. Who wants to live with that nagging at them? So thank you for allowing me to quickly go through some of the content of the Change the Culture of Construction. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Dan Hink. Dan, I've developed a friendship with he and the other people of the work group. Dan's the apprenticeship training representative of the Central Region, and Dan's going to fill you in on what I really think is a great program, and I'm proud to be part of it all, is Helping Hand.
Hey guys, can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. I wanted you to see this first. All right. So those that were at FIF, this is going to be a similar presentation, but if you haven't checked out the website, it's a great tool for not only yourselves and your members, but your friends, your family, anyone else that you know that might be struggling. You can get there by typing in IUPAT helpinghand.com or .org. This is the front page. You have a couple navigational tabs if you just want to get to this section, or if you just want to download information. As you scroll down through here, this is about a 4.5-minute video, basically what you just saw earlier. The first half of the site is the suicide prevention. It gives lots of, the Y construction, this is a navigational tab as well. But the suicide prevention lifeline, then Canada's as well. It gives you talking points, gives you behavioral things all throughout here. And it gives you resources to other versions, which we'll kind of talk about. Resources for additional information and guidance. These are kind of what we talked about. If you're in crisis, this part here, the Carson Spencer org is pretty interesting. That has some pretty cool resources on it. This is my favorite on the site, and anybody, I know the Central Region guys definitely have heard me talk about this. When you go there, construction workers typically are a certain type of person, and they're very proud, and they don't like to admit that they have weaknesses, and most of them are pretty pig-headed, and stubborn. And this site is very kind of, I know it says man therapy, but really it could say construction therapy just as easily. And as you go down through the site, it does a head inspection. And this is what I would recommend anybody that has a loved one or a friend or yourself that's struggling, especially like Bob and Mike talked about in this time with COVID and all the staying at home and then worried about all the financial situations and physical situations and family and everything. This is a good place to start. When you go here, it does a 20-point head inspection. Basically, it asks you questions, and the questions are meant to get down to what's wrong with you. Do you have, so it could be a sleep disorder, it could be stress, it could be suicidal thoughts, it could be substance use. and all these different things. But what this site does, once you get through there, then it takes you to a video site embedded into the site itself that will kind of narrow down some of the things that you might have a problem with, sleep or anxiety and all these different things. And then it gives you videos to watch, because I know a lot of people won't sit down and read it. So if the person could take the time just to do the 20 questions, it helps a lot, because it narrows down everything and gets you. And every single one of these has other resources to go to. I just love it. And I've had a couple friends that have used it, and they've said it's helped them as well. So, okay. So back to the site. Why construction? Here it gives all the kind of numbers that we've been talking about. They're very scary, but they're true, they're honest. These are great talking points if you just want to have a discussion with your members. Shout out to Bob here. Okay, then the second half of the site is dedicated to substance use disorder. Once again, it has symptoms. This is pretty cool. You go to the Mayo Clinic and it lists things in order of the symptoms, how they come, and then recognizing unhealthy. So this is how they feel like the order that you'll see them. And so depending on where you are on the list or where a friend is on the list, might give you an idea of how the severity of what they're going through. This is a really good resource and another one of my favorites. So find a treatment center near you in the United States. This is very easy to use, if it'll come up. So you can just enter the area code that you want to search, and then these pop up, and it gives you the resources over here, the phone numbers. You can narrow your search if you want. Scroll through these on the right and find something that is comparable to what you have. You can click on them and go see what they specialize in. But it's a wonderful outsource and stuff. You could even go back and test to see if your EAPs cover these particular outlets. Okay, and then at the bottom here, these are great. So this is the very bottom of the site. The resources are always like in black. There's two sections. These have suicide prevention and substance use disorder. So we'll start with the suicide prevention stuff. And these are things that they could be placards that you put in your training center, in your at your hall, wherever the locals are. You can kind of see the size of this. You know, you could have them made up. You could have it be a wallet card. You know, you could do it however, but these are the 15 warning signs of suicide, and they're good to know. Suicide prevention, once again, it's just numbers. This is a great tool to use at the council level to find out what you have and what you need to have. Action steps. You can create a plan for not only suicide prevention, but substance use as well. You can just change the questions over here. This is almost a must. You guys should have this up at anywhere in public areas. Not everybody has this. This is IUPAT. We were the first. We were even before the building trade guys. So they're using some of our stuff. So this is a great resource, and you should have this up where your members congregate or wherever they go pay their dues or wherever that's going to be. Mental health can't be fixed with duct tape. So once again, here's another kind of stair step of the risk of people. This is a great resource for women, suicide prevention toolkit. Some of it is who's dealt with suicide in the family. or someone close to them, this is a pretty good resource. It's lengthy, it's very detailed. Let's also get where the substance use stuff over here. And we'll just kind of run through this real quick. 11 questions to ask your doctor before taking opioids. So this is pretty good. I know a lot of the horror stories are sports stories. You know, their kids get injured and they put them immediately on oxycodone or Oxycontin and then bam. So that's a good resource. Finding quality, this is for our Canadian brothers and sisters, drug and alcohol treatment. It's pretty lengthy and very detailed. This is on the site. This is that same kind of site I showed you where you can find a treatment center. Don't be a statistic. This is really good for the job site. These are little toolbox talks. You know, you can sit down and just give you little categories that if you want to talk about. You can log it if you want. There's other resources here embedded in here. And then things to know, this is kind of like just a little how to register for training through the Allied Trades. So that is the site. And like I said, spend a little time. You can see it's not huge, but it's got a lot of resources. It's going to be hard to find. It's going to be hard not to find what you need on here. So anyway, with that, I'm going to turn it over unless anybody has any questions. There's some on the chat. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Doc Funstein and his staff to talk about changing the culture.
Thanks, Dan. I put some stats up there in the, or they're in the chat box, but they're also up on the screen as well. So the changing the culture of construction is something that we received from ATAP. I think I hear somebody in the background now. Received from ATAP in the Philadelphia area, and they gave us, they received that curriculum from a grant. So they were more than happy to share that with us. With that, we turned that into a train the trainer, FTI 1141, changing the culture. We've run that 3 times in Hanover, face to face, probably between 15 to 20 at least in each of those classes. That has also been converted to an e-learning within the learning management system. That would be Core 158, changing the culture of construction. That also has resources available for the learner to take as well. Recently, given the changes, the closures to the IFTI, we delivered an e-learning, and I kind of see what people, very similar to what folks have done. I see in the chat box where we had folks as a prerequisite take the changing the culture of construction curriculum, the e-learning, and then what we did is we had a follow-up where we brought in the instructors that would have taught the class in face-to-face. We brought in Luke DuBois, who is a local person from the Anne Arundel County, runs a treatment center here. And he, one thing that he really has added to the program is he, in particular in the face-to-face version, but also on the, when we brought everybody together with the experts, was the impact of the brain and how addiction impacts the brain. And then Bob Swanson does his piece, and then Mike does a little piece here on the helping hand. So think there was like 36 or so that took that. So we're really excited about having that. But I just want to encourage you to continue to direct your instructors, your members, your apprentices to the curriculum that's available for you in the LMS, and to continue to use and look for strategies on how to clarify. And I think I saw Phil and Dan Jr., you know, that's probably a good approach right now. Have them go through a little prerequisite and then have some follow-up for questions or answers. And, you know, another good idea there would be bring in somebody in the past. At Hanover, we brought somebody in that's been in a program and shared their experiences. You can bring in your local, maybe a local expert as well to help clarify. So again, we encourage you guys to continue to take it and look for, maybe in June, you might be offering another e-learning as well, with the follow-up with the experts in June. So with that, if nobody has any questions, I will turn it back over to Mike Hines.
Mike, I think you're muted.
Okay, there it is. So slide 9, please, Alice. So mental health first aid, USA. Who and what is mental health first aid? We were fortunate enough as a staff to have mental health first aid come in and present to us. It was about a year ago or so, approximately, wasn't it, Anton, about that time frame? They came in and they presented to us their mental health first aid program. We immediately saw the value of that program and what it could do throughout our councils in North America. So it's a skills-based training course that teaches participants about mental health and substance use issues and other disorders. It empowers employees to live the healthiest life they can, addressing their total health, both physical and mental. Research shows that when employees succeed in life, they succeed in their jobs. They are more productive, engaged, loyal, and goal-oriented. Just as CPR helps you assist someone having a heart attack, mental health first aid helps you assist someone experiencing a mental health or substance use related crisis. In the mental health first aid course, you learn risk factors and warning signs for mental health and addiction concerns. Also, strategies for how to help someone in both crisis and non-crisis situations, and where to turn for help. And we'll talk a little bit more shortly about how mental health first aid ties into the IUPAT. But I'd like to look at their mental health first aid action plan, which is slide 10. So there are 5 important points that we should all be aware of. We need to assess, we need to listen, we need to give, encourage, and the encourage continues. So let's go through each one of those right now. So assessment for a risk of harm or suicide, and taking the steps to assess for immediate support. So is the person threatening to hurt or kill himself or herself? Seeking to access to means to hurt or kill oneself? Talking or writing about death, dying, or suicide? Feeling hopeless and helpless? Acting recklessly or engaging in risky activities? Using alcohol or drugs? Withdrawing from family, friends, and society? Appearing agitated or angry, having a dramatic change in mood? That would be the first step in your assessment, is working with that person to see exactly where they are. And then L, we listen non-judgmentally. As you know, it takes skill and patience to listen and have a meaningful conversation with someone. You want the person you're communicating with to feel like they are being heard. Mental health first aid teaches you a set of verbal and nonverbal skills such as open body posture, comfortable eye contact, and other strategies to engage in appropriate conversation. And then G gives reassurance. Addictions and mental health issues are real and treatable. People can and do recover. We all know that. We need to approach the conversation with respect and dignity, and don't blame the individual for his or her symptoms. Mental health first aid provides information and resources you can offer to someone to provide emotional support and practical help. Encourage professional help, the first D. There are many professionals that can offer help to someone in crisis or just need someone to support them in a crucial stage in their life. They can find that through their EAP, and medical coverage, our medical coverage can offer also offer that assistance. And then they can be connected to the appropriate support systems. And finally, encourage self-help and other support. Individuals with mental illness can contribute to their own recovery and wellness through exercise, meditation, prayer, support groups, family and friends, faith, and other social networks. So this is the mental health first aid action plan. And if you look at every one of those letters, you'll notice that it spells algae. So, which is kind of odd, but I suppose it's a good way of remembering that action plan, algae. So we'll move on to slide 11, mental health first aid and the IUPAT. So in November of 2019, after we went through our course and we recognized this was valuable, we put it together so that a couple of our councils could run a couple pilot courses. And so in 2019, they were presented in DC3 and DC7. The feedback we received acknowledged that this awareness training falls in line with Helping Hand and should be presented to IUPAT councils. The pilot sessions were an overwhelming success. In attendance were field staff and office staff from council and training offices that could find themselves picking up the phone and finding a member in crisis on the other end of the line. Or it could have been a field representative being in the field and finding a member, a worker on a job site in crisis. Think about that. How would you handle that call or that situation? A member in crisis on the other end of the line. What do you do? And to really bring this back home, and some of you are aware of this because I generally say this because it puts it all into perspective. In 2018, we lost 11 IUPAT members to suicide. So how do we rationalize that? I mean, Helping Hand is how we do it. Changing the culture of construction is how we do it. Working together to build these programs together, to build a foundation that will last for generations to come is how we do it. So the 4-hour mental health first aid session explores the situations and gives staff an overview of their part in the support system to members in that potential crisis. So we're currently working with mental health first aid to provide training that would be at IFTI in Hanover for certification. We're taking back, be able to take that back to your councils, and they would be trained by IUPAT mental health first aid certified trainers. We are in the infancy of that, obviously with the coronavirus and everything that we all are going through. Some of the work that we are all working on has, I don't want to say come to a screeching halt, but we're working through the situations that we all are in right now. So that is, I believe that is something that you can look forward to in the future. It's going to be a valuable component of the Helping Hand Initiative. Slide 12. You are not alone. So we are in the process of putting together a toolkit. You've seen some of those in the Helping Hand website. The toolkit will have posters. It'll be, we're looking at development of EAP resources for councils. There'll be media and video tools for Helping Hand awareness. You'll be able to go on the IUPAT hub and be able to order what you need for your councils and your training centers. We want your input also on what you believe would be valuable tools to add to the toolkit. So please keep that in mind as we continue to move forward. And hopefully something comes to mind almost immediately that we could utilize in moving forward into your councils. Because we can never have enough tools. I mean, look at your toolboxes that you have. We always keep adding to our toolbox, and we will continue to add to the resources in this toolkit. Which leads us to slide 13. Well, here we are now. It's been, I don't want to say a long time in coming, but this is where we want it to be, right here, right now. We've developed a 10-step of implementation, the IUPAT Helping Hand for district councils. When I thought about this, I thought about Jake and Elwood, you know, and Jake and Elwood were trying to save the school, the Catholic school, and Elwood got that camera frame right in front of his face, and he said, "We're on a mission from God." Well, I tend to believe we're on a mission from God here. We're going to be saving lives, as I mentioned before, from generations to come. We're at the beginning of this. We're building the foundation of this program. It's crucial that we get it right, and we need to get it right now. It's an IUPAT program that will restore and save members' lives, and that's the bottom line. And as I'd mentioned once before, you DOTs are crucial to the process and building up on this foundation. And we are here, Finishing First and IFTI are here to support you as we move this forward. We need your support, we need your help. More than we needing it, the members need it, the employers need it. The steps that you see here, the 10 steps of implementation, are 10 steps that will lead you to becoming a certified IUPAT Helping Hand Council. Can everybody see those on their screen? We are going to be sending those out to you shortly after the meeting. Your district or your DOTs, I'm sorry, your BMSTs will also be receiving this information. And what we're in the process of doing is, as you can see on, which one is it down here? Establishing a standing labor management committee, including an employer representative to co-chair the committee, to be responsible for developing action plans, managing the processes, and building the district council IUPAT Helping Hand program. So this is a full, all-out, all hands on deck, everybody get together and work together to build this program at the council level to support your members and your employers. You'll be able to customize your own class presentations. You'll be able to build it as you see fit in your council. District Council 82 is different from District Council 83 is different from District Council 35. So everybody has different needs in their councils, but we're here to help you and support you as you move this through your council. So when you have an opportunity, we won't do this right now, but go through these 10 steps to implementation. And then upon completion of these steps, your council will be recognized. If we can go to the next slide, Alice. That was the first slide. That was the certificate. You see that? So we have a certificate of completion of the 10 steps to implementation that will be awarded and presented to you in a ceremony. It will be quite an accomplishment to complete these 10 steps to implementation. And this is the foundation on which this program is being built. And as I'd mentioned before, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30, 40, 50 years from now, we will have built a foundation that will save lives of IUPAT members. And with that, I'd like to ask if anybody has any questions. And Anton, I'll hand it back to you.
Thanks, Mike. Good job, good presentation for you and all the presenters. You know, on the checklist. So when you guys get the document, instead of ones over on the side, you'll see little check boxes. And the purpose for that is, you know, my understanding from discussing it with the folks that were on the committee, they wanted some of them to be easy, real easy to accomplish, so that way you could start checking those boxes. At the convention, you know, at the top of the document, you saw at the convention, it lists the resolution that every district council implement a training program. The report cards that your business managers would have received at GPAC, and they've been discussing with the GP, the report cards have a resolution tab. So it basically lists all the different resolutions that were passed at the convention and your progress towards meeting all of those resolutions. And this is one of them. And out of all the resolutions that we have, this one is probably the most thought out as far as an implementation plan for how we're going to get from A to B. A being, you know, very little implementation, to B being everybody is fully implemented and programs are up and running. I'm really excited about the work that the committee has done to put this together. I think it's easy to check some of those boxes. Some of them are going to take a little bit more work, and we're here to assist. It's one of Mike's primary roles at this point is to help coordinate all of these, you know, all the programs and all the different areas, and to be an assist. Most of the stuff that we do, we've talked about this time and time again, most of what we do is put together and provide tools for local implementation. We can't do it all here in Hanover. You know, we don't have the manpower, we don't have the resources to be able to implement programs throughout the entire country and up in Canada, US and Canada. The only way that we can do it is with the help of our local affiliates and our locals doing the implementation and us providing the tools and the backbone of support to help get there. I'm thrilled with what was put together. You know, I enjoyed the snippets of the presentation that we had today. You know, we got some statistics. We learned about what has been done so far, what classes are available, you know, what things we can do. I think the most important takeaway for you all is, what's our role in implementation of a Helping Hands program locally? What do we need to do to implement these programs locally? And I think, you know, that last, the second to last slide, the one before the certificate, that's the pathway towards implementation. And that's what we can help you with, is how do we get these implemented locally? What changes need to be made to your local program so that they fit your local area, your local needs? Some of us are farther ahead than others, and that's okay. Everybody will get there in due time. I also understand, you know, that right now with the whole COVID-19 thing going, this program is so important that we have them up and running so that we can provide aid and assistance to our members. but at the same time, we have so many other priorities going on right now. Trying to get people out to work, trying to make sure they have proper PPE when they're out there, helping police those job sites. You know, there's so much going on and it's so difficult right now. I understand that not everybody's going to run out and start checking boxes and start implementing. But as we think about this and think through it, pick the pieces that are easy to accomplish, the things that you can implement now, and gain some traction and some momentum and be able to provide support to our members, because we say it all the time, let's really walk the walk. It really is all about our members. It really is about making sure that they're safe on the job, that they're safe when they go home, that they have the skills to be able to provide for their families. This is one of the most important things that I think that we've done in a long, long time. Our skills training and all that is fantastic, but if we can't help people stay safe on the job, at home, during work, before work, after work, you know, then we're failing in the trust that you know, that they've given us. So we had some good chats going on the side, you know, talking about how people have implemented some of the training. You know, I like the idea of a blended learning approach, especially now while we, you know, we're all engaged in distance learning. You know, I'm curious, you know, again, those that weren't following in the chat, what do you guys think? What have you heard today? What questions do you have? What can we do to help assist? How can we help you implement? What do you need from us? And how can we help make this happen? So I'll throw that out to anybody that'd like to ask a question or make a comment.
Hey, Anton, this is Adam Holmes talking. Can you hear me okay?
Yep,
All
loud
right.
and clear.
Perfect. All right. I just kind of got an overall thing I'd like to throw in my 2 cents. I've been a trainer / DOT, you know, kind of involved with training for pushing 20 years now at DC7. And this whole changing the culture of construction has been one of the best classes, one of the best programs I've seen come out of the FTI or the international, as a matter of fact. I think it's well worth it. You know, I've seen people chatting that everybody should take it. I 100% agree. And just to piggyback with that, with the mental health first aid, I've actually been through that course a couple of times. I was in San Diego with the International Foundation and took it. Then I was lucky enough, it came back to DC7. And that course is phenomenal, piggybacks right along with the changing the culture, goes hand in hand. And actually, I don't know what kind of feedback you heard, but after we took that 4-hour course, and it was pretty much unanimous with all the staff at DC7, we took that 4-hour course for the mental health first aid, and nobody kind of wanted it to end. That easily could have been a 6 or an 8-hour course, and everybody was involved. I think everybody got something from it. I think that was phenomenal. And anything we can do with that, I think will just make all our membership, all the other trainers, the agents, everybody, it's a great course. It's a great thing to go through.
Thank you, Adam. You know, when I look at this as a, you know, overall the whole picture, it's going to take everybody to make this a really effective program. And it's not like, this isn't just like an OSHA class where you take a class, you get a card, you can go to work. This is not like a skills class where you know, read a little bit in the book, you take a class and then you go to work and you get the majority of it on the job site. This is a little bit different. And, you know, implementing a program is different than just putting on the class. And every time I engage in any type of the mental health learning, whether it was when mental health first aid came and did the class up in Hanover during our staff meeting, I'm, you know, taking the Changing the Culture class online, sitting in the classroom, I pick up something new each time. And as people share their experiences and, you know, partake in that learning, you know, it helps create more of a program than just doing a class. This isn't something where we just take a class, go to work. This is something that we have to live it and breathe it every day. It has to be part of our culture. That's why we keep calling it Changing the Culture. You know, that's what we're trying to do, is shift the, you know, shift telling people, don't worry about it, get over it, go to work. It doesn't matter if you're hurt, to, you know, trying to help them along. keeping in mind, we're not trained clinicians. That's not what we're not, we can help triage, but we're not there to provide that aid. We need to put those people in touch with professionals. That's one of the things that when we first started putting out the flyers, put the website together, we first started rolling out the program. One of the things that came up was there was a phone call that came to the IU, to the main 800 number, and it was a member that needed some help. Was, you know, considering death by suicide, thought that was the ultimate solution for the issues that they were having, and it highlighted, and again, you know, a lot of times these things happen, and it highlights holes in your thinking or issues that you have. The staff that we had answering the phones, answering the 800 number here in Hanover, weren't trained to deal with that. And while they're still not clinicians, what we did do was get mental health first aid to come in and do some training for people that answer our phones. So our frontline employees that answer the phone numbers, you know what things to listen for, know what things to look for, and where to provide some help, or how to get those people to places where they can get some help. You know, and it's one of those things where, again, we have to build that program and build, you know, it's different in every different place. So here in Hanover, we had to do that class. We had to do that training. We're looking at putting together some training. We have the 800 helpline right now for our membership. That's focused on pension questions, job site questions, you know, benefits questions. It's focused on that type of stuff. But we're going to be getting mental health first aid training for all the people that answer that line as well. So that way we, you know, if we get those calls in, you know, we know that there's going to be an uptick. When we start getting those calls, we know how to help those people. Anyone else have any questions or thoughts or anything that they want to share? You know, how have you implemented? What have you done? What's worked? What hasn't worked? Is there anything that's fuzzy right now? Does anybody, you know, have any thoughts on what they're going to do after today, after we get off the phone? Is anybody going to run out and start working on implementation? And if so, what are you going to do?
And I think this Larry Peacock, I think we need to start out with the 10 steps. We need to get the posters and stuff in our buildings. And we have a couple instructors that have been through this. But I have one more that's more interested in presenting it in the classroom. But we need to get this in front of our members where they see it on the walls. We have a lot of people with problems. They're hesitant to talk about them. We bring them up when they become an issue, but I think getting people our members familiar with this program just by seeing it around is good, as well as presenting it from time to time.
Larry, you bring up a very good point, because part of this process is removing the stigma and allowing people to feel comfortable enough to be able to talk to somebody that they trust and come forward and say, you know, I'm struggling with this, or I'm struggling with that. And knowing that there's somebody there in the training center or at the council that will stop and listen and be a part of bring that person back to wholeness. And obviously, like Anton said, we're not clinicians, but we can be that conduit to move them to the next place where they need to be to get the help they need. And a big part of that is removing that stigma so that they feel comfortable enough to talk to us about it.
Mike, where can they get the handouts and everything? Where can they get the posters? Is it on the IUPAT hub? Are we emailing stuff out? What's the best way to get those things into Larry's hands and other people's hands to get posted and you know, have on the tables and magazine racks at the office?
There are posters on the website, and maybe Gavin can talk a little bit about that also, as to the time frame on the toolkit and what that's looking like.
Yeah, if you go to IUPAThub.com, there is a Helping Hands section on the left-hand side. It does have materials to download that you can turn into handouts. The toolkit is in its final stages. We're waiting on feedback from this meeting this week. Things kind of changed with COVID-19 going on, but they're in the final stages. And so I will fast track them to be available. Once they're designed, they'll be on the IUPAT hub as well. And then the toolkit should arrive shortly after that. We're creating special packaging for it. So it's a little slower, but the materials themselves will be available for download, suitable for printing on the hub soon.
One thing that I'll also mention is as a follow-up to this session, if you would contact your BMSTs and contact your directors of servicing and just have a conversation with them about this session that we just had today and about your awareness of the Helping Hand Initiative and changing the culture of construction, because that's going to put this on the fast track, working with your BMST to implement these 10 steps. And again, we're all in this together. It's going to take a total team council effort to make it happen. So that would be my encouragement is as soon as this is over, pick up the phone, call the BMST.
Hey, Mike, that's a great point. You know, it's going to take a team. Your business manager needs to definitely be involved. Host a implementation meeting or encourage a implementation meeting gets put together. If everybody's responsible for something, then no one's responsible for it. So have a meeting and decide who's going to be responsible. One of those 10 steps was who's going to be your champion at the district council, who's going to be your implementation manager, or who's going to be your point person, who's going to be the person that kind of wraps their arms around it and makes it all, make sure that everything is tracking. We're not saying it has to be you all, but you guys are definitely part of the equation. Your business manager, get together with them, your director of servicing, director of organizing. Everybody needs to get together, you can do it on Zoom, have an implementation meeting to talk about what you learned, how you're going to implement, who's responsible for what components of it, what things you need, and then let us know how we can assist. So good catch, Mike. Make sure and run this by your business managers. Make sure that they're in the loop. They should be the ones driving the ship. You all can definitely assist, and we stand by to help you as well. Any other thoughts or questions or comments?
Hey, Anton, can you hear me?
Yep, we got you, Dan.
Maybe right now, because of a lot of our members are off, I guess there's over 55% of our members that are laid off, probably struggling. Some guys might be hitting the bottle, some guys might be hitting the pills, whatever the case may be. A lot of communication blasts has been coming out of the GP's office, which I think is very good information. Mike and I kind of talked about this a little bit the other day. Maybe the timing is right where, maybe something came out with, maybe from the GP's office. So, the BMSTs, servicing directors of organizing, everybody sees something about this program, which may open the doors a little bit, because again, if we're supported by the BMSTs in anything we do, it makes it that much easier. Just a thought.
Yeah, good point, Dan. I will. I'll talk to John Doherty about it, and I know there's been a lot of communication coming out lately, and we definitely need to make this part of it. We don't want to miss an opportunity.
Thank you.
So, if there's any other questions on this, if not any other topic, anything, what do you guys think of today? It's an odd format. I'll tell you what. Personally, I think it's gone better than I anticipated. I figured we'd have a whole bunch of people not figuring out how to mute, thought we'd run into some sort of internet issues. The week's not over, but I'm really pleasantly surprised with the format and how well it's worked today. I enjoyed the presentation. Just curious what your all thoughts are. If anybody has any thoughts on that, or anything that we didn't talk about that you think we need to talk about.
This is Tom from BC 82. So Eddie's been heavily involved in this whole program at our center. He came back He started to teach this to the apprentices, found that he lost their interest after about 6 hours. So he came up with a 4-hour program based on all the curriculum that you guys have put together. It's worked well. The fact that he is so open about his recovery has made it so that a lot of these apprentices that they might be in their 4th, 5th, 6th year recovery themselves, they wanted to help, they want to be involved. So we have been working with our business manager. We're trying to come up with some sort of a format to where they can get together and chat late at night, kind of incognito so nobody knows who each person is. But yeah, we want to get something out there so that if they want to talk, they have that opportunity. So we're working on that right now.
That's a great idea, Tom. I like that. That's really cool. You know, we are a union after all. It should be members helping members. That's what we're all about.
Hey, Anton and Mike and Tom, this is Ken Seal. I was talking to a gentleman the other day, and I know that there's small IUPAT groups that do meetings after their union meetings. They'll do like their own AA group type stuff. And we all know how those AA groups work, is some are good and some are really bad. But if we could have, you know, maybe those type of groups like you're talking about, Tom, like an IUPAT AA group, that would be, I think, a good idea. Even with this COVID-19 stuff, even virtually, if they could see each other talking, I think would be a huge idea. So I like that comment that you made.
Any other thoughts on this or anything? Okay.
Anton, in order to keep the conversation moving forward to all the DOTs, I'd encourage you to talk to your ATRs, and we'll all connect and put this all together, working together. So we'll just continue to move Helping Hand forward. And thank you again for being here today and a part of this initial webinar. I think this is the first, right, Anton?
This is the first one where we've all been on video and all looking at one another and doing it all virtually. First one, Mike.
Good start.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Mike, and everybody. Honestly, I really appreciate everyone jumping on. I know we've all got a million things going on, a bunch of irons in the fire. I'm trying to just figure out how to survive while we go through this together. I really appreciate you taking the time to get on, participate. I was kind of watching both the presentation and looking at all of you as we as we're talking, and most everybody's trying to be as engaged as possible. I hope that this is the same type of thing that's happening when you're doing your distance learning with your apprentices. I hope that they're engaged. I hope that that we figure out how to navigate this new world together. Some of it's going to take helping each other out. Some of it's going to take some VR. Some of it's going to be just listening to one another. I really appreciate everybody jumping on, listening to us, sharing, and look forward to the next couple of days. And this might not be something that we do on a weekly basis, but I think we need to get together like this a little bit more often as we roll things out, and just talk it through, and share with one another. So one more time, I'll throw it out there for any other questions, comments, thoughts, concerns, anything. Doesn't have to be Helping Hand related. It can be any other topic. Anything that you want to talk about, next couple of days, throw them out there, and we can do that. Otherwise, I will see you all again very soon tomorrow.
Hey, Anton, this is Ken Sill again. Sorry to interrupt again, but I just like to thank all the DOTs, across all the regions, because this was unprecedented. We weren't really prepared for this type of pandemic to come up. But just listen to the efforts that all the directors of training have done throughout all the regions to make sure that their apprentices are taken care of, getting the needed training that they need to be safe on the job site. the needed training they need to be successful on a job site is very huge. So all the DOTs definitely needs a hand because they've all done a wonderful job.
I agree, Ken. Anybody else? Last call. Okay, we will see you all tomorrow. It looks like there is 53, to answer your question, Dave, 53 people on the call. I'm not sure how many DOTs are on, but it looks like almost everybody. We'll do a recap tomorrow. We might have had 1 or 2 people that couldn't participate that had someone else participate in their place, but 53 people on the call, and it looks like most of the DOTs are present and accounted for. So, all right, everybody. Thanks so much. We will see you all tomorrow. Have a good rest of your day, and be safe out there.
All right, thanks everybody. Have a nice day.
Look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow.
Have a good one.